All right, Peter, happy 90-day anniversary, 90 days into owning a painting franchise. Um, what a 90-day stretch that's been, huh?
Yeah, it feels like over a year ago that we started. We did your house first, and it just feels like forever ago. I can't believe it's only 90 days.
Well, we have compressed, a year's worth of jobs, a year's worth of sales, a year's worth of headaches, a year's worth of mistakes into our first 90 days. Um, So, you don't have gray hairs yet, but I got way more gray hairs since.
Oh, I got them. They're here. You can't see them in the light, but they're. My wife was teasing me the other day about it. They're coming in strong now.
Well, it doesn't surprise me, right? Another
My
90
SprayNet hair.
days, and we're going to have white hair.
Yeah,
Um, well, let's just recap what
yeah,
has happened here. So we bought a SprayNet franchise, right? We went through the training. We got all the stuff dialed in. We bought all the gear, and we launched exactly 90 days ago. 90 days ago, our employees showed up, and we
yeah,
started doing jobs. And I didn't check the numbers before I hopped on, but we're over 150 grand in sales.
yeah.
Um, we're
156,
over 100 grand in completed jobs.
110, I think.
We're up to whatever 33, I think, Google reviews. We've hired people. We've fired people. I've thrown a few temper tantrums when alone at my house. We've been punched in the face. We've been celebrated. We've been profiled by a major business YouTube channel.
Yeah.
We've lost money. We've had
We
people
lost,
we've had people lose the keys to our truck.
lost the keys, lost the paint.
Yeah, we've lost paint. We painted the front of a house the wrong color.
Wrong color.
What else? Am I missing anything here?
Lots, I'm sure, but I think they get the picture.
Yeah, it's been madness. It's
Yeah,
been madness. But all the problems we've faced in our first 90 days are all the problems you want to face,
that's right.
right?
Yep. Good
Um,
problems to have for sure.
yeah, I mean, one of the big problems was simply production exacerbated by the fact that the market responded very, very well to our value offering, right? The market responded incredibly well to our service. They see the value, it's amazing stuff. And so again, problems you want to have, but this is harder than we ever imagined, right? This is real chemistry. We are teaching, our crews, our employees to be real chemists and to work with catalysts and retardants and accelerants and dew readings and temperature readings and moisture readings in the air and dust scrubbers, air scrubbers, and right. So I don't know how you feeling after 90 days. I just keep rambling. You tell me where are you at, dude?
No, I'm feeling great. I mean, as you mentioned, these are the problems you want to have, and I do. It was Bruce, our franchise coach, that said that we basically condensed a year's worth of problems down into the first 2 months. I feel really, really positive about so much that it makes it really easy to kind of not forget, but just look past all the little silly struggles. Like, we're already to the point where we can laugh about it. I think that's huge, because without having that positive look towards the future, I think it's easy to get stuck in like, oh, and we lost the keys to the truck, and we lost the paint, and we painted the house the wrong color. All these things, it's all your perspective. Like,
Yep.
That's what it comes down to. And I feel really positive in the way that we've handled all of that, even in the moment, but especially now after some hindsight and a little time to cool off, we can laugh it off. I feel great about it.
Tell me what it's like to go from a professional jiu-jitsu practitioner, right? Manager of a big, successful jiu-jitsu academy to managing a blue-collar, although fancy, still a blue-collar crew of painters. I mean, what a wild transition. give me your thoughts.
So I feel like it's kind of unfair because part of the jiu-jitsu people came over to the blue collar with me. So I'm still managing the same people to a certain extent. But the work is much different. I've learned a lot. I have a lot more to learn, but now 90 days in, I feel confident that I can at least manage the on-site production. I can also manage the calendar. If we had two teams, I feel like I can manage how to interact with how those two interact with each other. As far as the on-site management goes, I feel better and better every day. It also helps that now we're just doing the kitchens. Our coach advised us whatever 120 days ago, you guys should just start with kitchens. We said, nah, we're going to start with everything. And we did. We did a lot of different coatings. We did a roof coating. We did siding. We did doors and windows. We did brick stain. We did stucco. We did all the things that you usually wait until next year to do. Now we're just focused on kitchens, and I feel great about it because we have a process written down. We can iterate on that process once it's been defined. But that's the hardest part, is just figuring out what exactly our process is. Like SprayNet tells you, well, here's the 8 steps. It's not that. It's pretty straightforward. But okay, what does that mean in real time? It means 2 full days of work sometimes. From 8 steps to, ostensibly 16 hours. There's some gap there, and it's up to me to fill that in and learn what exactly it means to prep the doors. That's one check. Okay, well, that's 8 hours worth of work. What does it mean? So I'm super grateful for the team that we have, because there's no way we'd be where we're at without them. They're super patient with us. They laugh along with us. They don't laugh at us, at least to our face. They save that for the ride home when they laugh at us. But they're amazing, and they have such a great attitude. We got a compliment 2 weeks ago. This cool old guy, he's probably in his 70s or whatever. And he's like, man, I have to tell you something. This is the most fun, the happiest crew I've ever seen on a job site. Wow. To me, that was such a compliment, because it speaks to the vibe of the site. Like, how would we fail if we have a site like that, where the vibe is good, everybody's working hard, but they're laughing, they're joking, they're enjoying their time. That to me is a much bigger compliment than anything about the specific work that we're doing, because I think that's really what we're in it for, is to make sure that it's like a long-lasting culture that we're building here. I was really, really touched by that compliment.
That's a really good compliment. And that is really, when you got that compliment, that's really when, dare I say, all the learnings integrated on the production side, and the production team started finding a stride that we knew we'd hit, but it took us a while to find that stride, right? And all the jobs we've done up to that point, they were done well. And yeah, we had to go back and do some touch-ups, and maybe it took a little longer than we anticipated. And, we still left all those people with great kitchens. And oh, did I lose you?
No,
we're still going. Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
We still left all those people with great kitchens.
Right.
But when you got that compliment a few weeks ago, that's when you guys essentially turned the corner, started hitting margins, started just finding the flow state, if you will.
Yeah.
Really nailing it, getting efficient, documenting everything, producing those raving fans that we knew we would produce, right? And so, I don't know, tell me how that felt. Tell me what you learned from that, because there was a lot of struggle to hit to that point. And again, still leaving good products, but now you're nailing it, right? I mean, what's that been like?
I think it's, progress is very gradual and then all at once. And like all of a sudden you snap it out of it and you're like, wow, we're actually really good at this now. I feel like we were able to hit that in the past couple of weeks, and what I think is really, really amazing about that is that it's cool to talk about all the numbers that we condensed down in a couple months, but we've also brought people who had zero experience with us up to being able to produce like that in just a couple months. And that's super encouraging, because if all it takes is 90 days and we can get, somebody with zero experience on a team to be ready to then split teams, we can scale. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do here. Is we're not just trying to have a team of 2 or 3 people and just chip away one job at a time. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. That's just not what we got into this for. And so that was like the signal in my mind that was like, okay, we can do this well. We can do it efficiently. Our culture is set now. Now we start to get to running, right? Like that's where, in my opinion, that's when the growth can really happen, is once you can actually do the thing. Now you can scale to 2 teams, then 3 teams, then you have a product manager or production manager. You have a sales side that we're forcing you to keep up with us now, rather than you guys just sitting back like, well, I guess I'll go do a bid this week. Now we're like, hey, we're running out of work. What do you have for us? Like, we're booked out for the rest of the month, but what are we doing next? So we're putting pressure on the sales team in a good way. It's very encouraging for, we'll get through kind of a little bit slower time in the holidays. And then I really feel like we're going to hit the ground running in January. And that's when it really starts. Like that's year 1, we're in year 0 right now. This is all, we get to use this as practice, but it really starts in January. That's when the rubber meets the road, in my opinion. What do you think?
Well, that's when the cool thing about SprayNet is all the numbers are tracked, and there's some friendly competition, and there is a competition for Rookie of the Year, and we want to be Rookies of the Year, right? Yeah. And that does start in January. So technically, this is year 0, but this is still a business we started, and we're doing real jobs, and, so there's nothing pretend about what we've been doing,
right?
But I want to go back to the employee, and we won't use his name to honor his privacy, but he's a blue belt jiu-jitsu training partner of ours, and he came on knowing nothing, and here he is 90 days, and he is rocking, right? So sometimes listen, they're not all going to be great hires, as we know, because we've had to let a few people go, and that's part of it,
right?
But we had a great hire. I want you to tell me why he was a great hire, and why he's been so successful, why he accepted the training. I know off the top of my head, well, 1, he's a jiu-jitsu guy, so he can grind, right? He's got a blue belt, so he can suffer for at least, he's tough, focused, can get beat up without whining, and so that's a great baseline. There's a great entry level kind of metric to hit, right? Are you tough? Are you focused? But what else? I mean, how'd this guy succeed?
I mean, I think it comes down to the same things that really indicate anybody's success, and it really doesn't matter. Like, you can zoom out. It doesn't matter if it's SprayNet. It doesn't matter if it's business. In life, it really comes down to 2 things. It's your effort and your attitude. The effort that you're willing to put in is fully within your control, and I really feel confident saying that this person is one of the hardest workers I've ever seen. The amount of effort that he puts into it is incredible. And it's not just one day. It's not just when I'm around. It's not just when you're there. It's day in and day out, week in, week out, month in, month out now. And he's always doing his best, putting the most forth. The other side of that is I've seen people work really hard, but they're also really hard to work with because of the way that they talk about it. Their attitude really matters. And you have to get people to want to work with you. That's a skill. It doesn't matter how good you are at any other skill that you might possess. If people don't want to work with you, you can't fit in on a team and be part of a positive culture, you're going to have a really hard time. And, it's easy to look at it through the lens of jiu-jitsu since I've done that so much, but I would much rather, if I'm hiring a new coach for a class, I would much rather have like an enthusiastic purple belt than a kind of entitled old black belt. The skills are not that much different. Maybe the black belt's got some tricks up their sleeve, but skills wise, they kind of know what they're doing on a similar level. But the difference really to me is their attitude, and the entitlement, I put my time in. I don't have to grind. I don't have to have that level of work ethic anymore. I think that's a deal killer. And it really doesn't matter how good you are. There's no room on the team for somebody who thinks that they've made it, because I haven't, you haven't, nobody else on the team has. Why would you think that that's, the attitude to bring to this? So having that growth mindset, people willing to put their time in, be coachable, learn, positive attitude. Like, this has nothing to do with SprayNet. This has nothing to do with martial arts. This is just life. Like, you get in what you put, or you get out what you put in. So he's a grinder for sure.
Yeah. I've got another one. I just saw this. I think I saw it on a YouTube video where, you had an XY axis, and on this is to calculate who you want to work with, right? Who you want on your team. And one axis is performance. The other axis is trust, right?
Yeah.
And so if someone has great performance but very little trust, they're a hyper performer, but nobody likes them, nobody trusts them. That's a toxic employee.
That's right. Yeah.
And you don't want them on your team. And I even think this might have been like a Navy SEAL talking here. And then you've got, obviously, everybody wants someone who's a hyper performer and,
high trust.
High trust. But he said, hey, I'd even take a mid-level performer and high trust, or dare I say a low-level performer and high trust, because I know a low-level performer, I can train them up to be a mid. Right. I can train them up to get a B or a B plus.
You can bump them up a letter grade. Yeah.
Yeah. How are you going to train trust? Right. I mean, you can't. So I thought that was a good XY axis, recommendation.
Totally.
The way to look at it, the trust versus performance. And like we said at the beginning, I mean, listen, we're not splitting the atom here, right? Anybody can learn this stuff.
Right.
Or many people can learn this stuff, but without the attitude, there's no chance, right? You have to have the right attitude in order to be on our team. It's as simple as that.
Well, the book Good to Great by Jim Collins really distills that down in a great way, where he talks about getting the right people in the right seat. Having somebody who's really skilled, a high performer, but low trust, means that there's the wrong person, but they're in the right seat. They know how to do the job. They're just not the right person for it. And that's one of the hardest ones to figure out, is because they can lean back on their performance. They say, look, I'm doing my job. Like, I'm outselling everybody on your sales team, or I'm out producing anybody on the production side. Those are the hard people to figure out when you need to remove, because it's obvious when you find the right person in the right seat. They feel happy. They know that maybe they're being pushed a little bit, but it's not outside the scope of what they're capable of, and they're good at it. They have the capacity for it. They want to do that. It's really hard when you find somebody who's good at the job, but not the right person for it. So, yeah.
We haven't run into this, but as a business owner, that's a hard guy to let go of. But someone you have to let go of is the hyper performing, toxic employee, right?
Yeah.
And so you look on a spreadsheet, and we're all numbers guys. If you're not a numbers guy, you're going to have a rough time in business. So you look on the spreadsheet and you go, oh, Billy Bob is rocking, right? Yeah. And then you talk to the team and everybody hates Billy Bob. Right. Okay, well, he's dragging them down, right? If they show up and they hate the dude that they're interacting with every day, they're not going to be optimized. They're not going to stick around as long. I mean, it's just a cascading effect. So you've got to have the stomach to remove, the high performer, low trust.
Maybe your highest performer. And they like to use that narrative. Then they say, well, everybody's just jealous of me, But when you find somebody who's high performing and high in trust, what you find is that they bring everybody up under them. Not only are they high performing, but everybody else on their team is higher performing because they get the positive influence of somebody who knows what they're doing, but is acting in a trustworthy way. And like our podcast, Capital Stewardship, that's the stewardship piece, right? Like you have to find a way to bring other people up with you. Otherwise, you're kind of this cutthroat, like zero sum player it's either, it's you versus everybody. And there's just no room on a team for somebody who acts in that manner.
Yep. Well, we've learned these lessons quick, a lot of these lessons quick. And when you're in the thick of it, right? Whatever game you're in and you're getting smashed, you're rarely like, oh, I'm so grateful for this struggle. I'm going to be a better person because all this suffering, right?
Yeah.
I would like to evolve to the point where I can acknowledge it while in it.
Yeah.
But every time I look back, when we're through the struggle and you look back, I'm always grateful for it. And so here we are 90 days in, and it sounds, just to hear that come out of my mouth. I mean, 90 days is nothing. It's not even a drop in the bucket. It's a mist. It's a fraction of a piece of a mist of a drop out of a bucket. Right.
Right.
And yet, we're beat up and scarred and gray haired. And because we went full force, and because of that, we had the most successful, sales launch in SprayNet history. We're going to have we've had a great year zero. We're going to close out with a great year zero. And there's a decent chance we're going to be contenders for rookies of the year. And I like these little competitions, you and I have been doing athletics. You're a professional athlete. I've been an amateur athlete my whole life. I just like competition, whether it's foosball or jujitsu or, SprayNet, it doesn't matter. And it's all in good fun. And we've got some Canadian rookies that we're competing with from old Saskatoon, and those guys are fun. And I look forward to earning our bragging rights there.
Absolutely. I can't wait to talk to those guys. We should get them on a podcast, check in with them sometime.
Yeah. We will count on that. That's a good one. So all that being said, after these 90 days, what are the big action items that you see after our stumbling and bumbling and awesome, incredible launch? And then after all the suffering that has yielded these great lessons, what's your take on moving forward here?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, it's going to get a little slower, and we're kind of prepared for that. We built that into our model, but it's going to be harder for people to want us in their house during the holidays. We have Thanksgiving coming up. We got a couple weeks, and then we have the whole rest of December is kind of filled with all the rest of the holidays through New Year's, and then year one starts. So between now and January, 1st, what I really think we need to focus on is making sure that we are ready for the influx of business that arrives when year one, when that marketing machine kicks on and everybody's like, okay, holidays are over, let's do those projects, people get their tax money back, whatever else. That's when we really expect to get busy. And if we haven't done the work in the slower times, in these next 6 weeks, we'll call it 8 weeks, then we've really wasted that opportunity, because the time's going to pass anyway, right? January 1's coming, whether we like it or not. And we want to be able to look back on January 1. We want to look back at the last 2 months and say, I'm really glad we did all this work to build out the foundation, to be ready to train other people on the production side, to train administration staff, to train more salespeople. Now's the time to do that, because we're only focusing on kitchens. We're not spread a million different places doing a bunch of different, coatings and different types of jobs all over, from Colorado Springs all the way to Denver. This is our time to really focus and drill down on our processes, get them. First, we got to get them figured out. Then we got to get them, written down, and then we can start iterating on them. So in my mind, the next 2 months really has to focus on developing the systems that are going to help us scale in year one.
And we've been able to get enough data in the first 90 days, because we've essentially done a year's worth of work in 90 days, right? And so we've been able to get enough data to know what we should be doing with those systems, how to adjust those systems. I mean, we're probably in, if we're doing a 1.1, 1.2, we're probably in systems 1.2, 1.3 phase already because we've done so much work and gotten so much data.
Yeah.
And kind of to your point, just so those listening know, we were recommended by our coach when we bought this franchise to only do one coating, right? To do kitchens. And I said, la, 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 la. And
I'm buying a painting franchise. I'm going to paint. I think those are your exact words.
That's exactly right. I said, I bought a paint franchise. How about we do some paint jobs?
Yeah.
And so we did roofs, stucco, window, doors, brick, siding. I mean, railings, kitchens. We did it all. And it was too much because this is beyond normal painting, right? This is, our catchphrase is custom chemistry, smarter painting, or custom chemistry, specialty painting. Yeah. And it's a little more than, hey, clean the surface and paint. Not even a little more. It's a lot more. So I've been humbled. And now we're like, hey, everything our coach tells us to do, we're going to do. But it's just like a child. Sometimes that child needs to touch that stove with their own finger.
That's right.
To believe it's hot. And for me, I had to touch it and then put my hand on it and then sit on it for a second, jump off, and so yeah, we've learned, and that ability to focus now just on one substrate through the winter, because we were sold out of exterior jobs, and we've got a waiting list for exterior starting in the spring. So all that is good. But I guess, for anybody listening to if you're listening and considering buying a franchise and there's good training in that franchise, I recommend you listen to those trainers, right? And if they say, hey, why don't you start going 5 miles an hour instead of dropping it and doing 90 miles an hour your first week, you should listen to them, right?
That's right.
But all that being said, a lot of the pain that we've experienced in these first 90 days were brought on because we jammed it into first. We dropped that clutch and, we're doing 90 in first gear in a race car. I don't want to say out of control, but it was just a lot. Yeah. And so the learnings we got are invaluable, and we're going to stack those. But at the cost to a degree to our sanity. So, it just depends on your tolerance, right? So I know, the 10 people that watch this podcast, right? Maybe the 20 people, consider your tolerance for pain, right? You always consider your tolerance for risk when investing in something. Consider it for pain, consider it for frustration, consider it for long nights, consider it for lack of time off, this is, I had a back injury, and I'm coming up on the year anniversary of that back injury. And this is the least amount of exercise I've gotten this whole year in my whole life this year, mainly because of a spinal injury, which that will do it. And I'm okay with it because I was forced to, I had to focus on this business anyway. Right. And I know it's just temporary. Of course, I'd love to live a life of pure harmony and balance all the time and just always be frolicking through the fields with flowers and joy and sunshine, right? But that's not life, that is not life. And that's not a good life. Is, a part of a good life is accepting these challenges, which come through accepting responsibility, and then getting through it, and then breathing a sigh of relief, and then boom, get back in it again. And I know I'm ranting here and going all over the place, but these are all things I think about when thinking about the last 3 months. I haven't had too many days off, just the ability to grind through that. It's made it easier that I'm still nursing a back injury. But I don't know really where I was going with that, but I mean, tell me, you've had your butt handed to you, right? Yeah. You've been doing, 6 a.m. to 7 p.m., stretches a lot. Yeah. How are you handling it all? Or how have you handled it all?
Well, I've viewed it, I've come from, as you mentioned, I come from professional athletics. Like when I was a fighter, I would do kind of like these camps, and the camp is to prepare you for your fight. So you don't train at like, a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 all year round. Your body can't handle it. So you kind of have to do these sprint, recover styles of preparation for your fights. So we've kind of just done essentially that. We were in like a sprint through the first 2 months to get through the exterior jobs, because we can't paint once the weather is low enough to freeze our paint. We don't want it to freeze for the first 30 days of it being sprayed. So we kind of had to sprint through to get all those exterior jobs done. Now we're in a little bit of like a recovery phase where we're just focusing on one substrate, and we're starting to kind of plan our next moves here. As we mentioned, we want to scale. So we're building out the processes, making sure that we've laid the groundwork for everybody. I think the next sprint is coming at the beginning of January. And I think that that's going to be an all-out sprint through to get as many jobs as we can off of our wait list for the kitchens, because in April, then we open up to the exteriors. And as you mentioned, we already have a wait list for that. So that's going to be like the next sprint. So it's kind of in these like 3 to 4 month windows, where very similar to fighting, you have your fight and you recover a little bit, kind of like regroup, and then you start training for your next one, 6, 8, 10, maybe a 12-week camp. Then you fight again. That's like your big thing. And then you back into the recovery mode. So we're following a similar timeline to that. Maybe not quite as it's not quite as epic as like, the big fights like Mallory's fight, 60,000 people in Germany. It's not like that. Like, what was it? It's like, oh, well, we're done exteriors now. And it was just kind of like move on to the next thing. But in our minds, it's a good way to frame those kind of like those little windows. That's what makes this work-life. I don't really believe in a work-life balance. I believe in a work-life sway. And when the work is there, you got to do the work. And then you have to find a way to let it sway back and enjoy parts of your life when it's, you don't have to create a false sense of urgency. That urgency is coming. You don't have to worry about that. When there's a time to breathe and relax, you need to take it. Take an extra day with your kids, take a day by yourself, whatever it might be. Because, then the next sprint is coming, and then you want to be ready to tackle that with all the enthusiasm. If you don't give yourself any rest, you're not going to be able, you're going to limp into the start of that sprint. And how could you expect to finish strong when you're starting out at a disadvantage, So.
Yeah, I like that. I agree. I think work-life balance is kind of a joke, right? But I do consider my life in aggregate, right? Health, wealth, love, family, free time in aggregate. And sometimes, the wealth creation takes a bulk of the time. Sometimes the family stuff takes the bulk of the time. Sometimes your health, and if you ever, as someone who had a massive back injury, I mean, when your health goes bad, really bad, that bumps to the front of the list, like immediately.
That's right.
Yeah. And that's just the nature. Yeah, it would be, again, you could do a pie chart of the perfect life and how all things balance, good luck. Like that's fantasy land, right?
Yeah.
And everybody's to one degree or another stumbling and bumbling their way through life, right? And you just hope you get better at the stumbling and bumbling, right? And you enjoy it more. And so I don't know. And you can't even articulate a work-life balance, right? What does that mean? You work 12 hours a day and your life is 12 hours a day. I mean, it doesn't even make sense mathematically.
Right.
But judging your life in aggregate is, I think, a wise thing to do, right? So, because there's plenty of people who are, have a gazillion dollars in the bank, but they don't have good relationships with their kids, right? That's not wealth to me. And then there's people who have no money and they live on the streets, but they got some buddies, they got some good, you know what I'm saying? There's an infinite way of living this life and an infinite amount of options. And what we're doing is kind of, trying to get laser focused on what this work, this job in our portfolio, right? This business, what does it mean to us? What are our goals with it? How do we run this thing? How do we do right by our employees? How do we do right by our investors, which are you and me, right?
Yeah.
So I've got to do right by you. You got to do right by me.
Right.
And so even the aggregate of running a SprayNet franchise, if you wanted to just compartmentalize that, a lot to think about, right?
Yeah.
But I tell you, I'm glad to be on this journey with you. I think you're handling it really well. I mean, going from neither of us had any paint experience, right?
No. Yeah.
Now we got some employees that have solid experience, and
Right.
like you said before, we're nothing without them. We're not doing any of this without them. And that's a juggling act in and of itself, like juggling the various personalities, the needs of other humans, and that's a complicated dance. So I guess I'll sum all that up. I know I keep going on these little rants here, but I'll sum all that up with, as an investor, I don't wait to have 100% of the information to place a bet, right? To make an investment. Because once everybody has 100% of the information, the deal's gone, right? Well, you also have to do that, in a smaller scale, in a painting franchise of all things, right? You're not going to know 100% about the employee you're hiring. You want to try to get 70%, grasp on what they're about, right?
Yeah.
And then you bet on them or not. And you have to constantly essentially make educated guesses, and your guesses get better and better as you move forward in anything, right?
Right. Yeah.
And even in these 90 days, we are already better at bidding. We're already better at estimating the time it's going to take. We're already better at vetting employees. We're already better at vetting clients, right? We're not the right fit for certain clients, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So we're way better than we started. And again, I'll take it. I will take a year's worth of learnings in 3 months to do what we've done.
Yeah.
Now we're going to take a little breather. We're going to dial in our systems. We're not as busy. But what a wild ride, man. What a wild ride. What's the diff? So, you're kind of new to business ownership, right?
Yeah.
What's the biggest surprise that you found going from an employee to an owner of a company?
The biggest surprise. Wow.
What caught you off guard about all this?
I guess I had always kind of felt like I never really saw being an entrepreneur as one of the options for me. It just had always felt like I was going, originally I was going to go to law school, and there, you probably work at a firm, and so you're an employee there. And so then when that didn't, I decided I was miserable. I worked at a law firm as a paralegal for a couple of years and hated it. So I'm glad I got out of that. But then, I started my career as a professional MMA fighter. And when that came to a close, I got a job as a manager, general manager of an academy. It wasn't really on the menu for me to start a business or to buy a franchise or anything, and so I guess the thing that has really surprised me is that you were able to see something about me that you thought would make a good fit for this before I saw it, and I think it took a lot of courage for you to take somebody who has zero business ownership experience and to decide to partner with them and bring them in. You didn't have to do that. And you were pretty clear about it. You said, look, I'm doing this either way. I want you to join me. You don't have to. You didn't force me to leave a job, or you haven't forced me to do anything. You just opened some doors for me. It's up to me to decide that. But what I think has really surprised me, maybe, like I said, you probably saw this more than I saw it in myself. But what has surprised me is how well suited I am for what we've been doing. I've really loved it. And I didn't think that it just wasn't even something that I thought was on the menu before. And so falling into this kind of rhythm and enjoying every step of this process and condensing a year's worth of mistakes into 90 days, like I can't think of anything I'd rather have been doing in the last 90 days, honestly. And it has very little to do with SprayNet, although they've made it really easy for us. They've laid that foundation. Most of it has to do with getting to work with you, and learning a ton alongside you. Like, we've had a good sense of humor about most of it, at least after the fact, maybe not always in the moment. But I mean, it's just one of those things where, like, the universe has just presented this opportunity for us. But, in speaking for myself, to me, at what seems like the right time, and having the courage to kind of step into that has been, I'm just really, really grateful for you and for this and for what we've been able to build so far. And I'm so excited for what year 1 and year 3 and year 5, like, we've made the projections. Like, this is exciting, and it's working. We've tested the model. It works. Now it's just up to us to execute, and the level of efficiency that we can execute is going to be what determines, our success in it. And getting to own such a big part of my success, if we succeed, it's because of us. If we fail, it's because of us. Like, that's a really exciting prospect to me, and I'm really eager for what the years have to come.
Yeah, I mean, we were already working together because I came to the academy to teach because I wanted to teach my kids.
Yep.
And I wanted to be, my body will only let me train 3 days a week, but I wanted to be around jujitsu, more than that. So I saw you in action. And then I said, well, hey, do you have any, you ever, sprayed paint? No. You ever held a paint sprayer? No. You ever taped a box? No. You ever masked a house? No. Perfect. Let's go into business together.
Yeah, that's basically what happened.
No, but zoom out, and what have you done, right? You had the guts to step on the mat, right? Whether it's the jiu-jitsu mat or step in the octagon or whatever. And that is the most important part, I think, about being an entrepreneur. Listen, I've been starting businesses since I was in 4th grade, right?
Yeah.
So many people have asked me about how to start a business. What should they do? Some people have been talking to me about it for over a decade, right?
Yeah.
A guy took me to lunch, 3 or 4 months ago, and he said, I've been, looking at starting a business, and I've looked at this, and this. And I'm like, yeah, those are good ideas. How long have you been looking? 7 years. And it's like, good luck, dude. Like, I don't have the special sauce to get you off the fence, right? There's a type of person who wants to be in the game. And there's a type of person who wants to watch the game. There's a type of person who wants to commentate the game, right? Yep. You're the type of person who wants to be in the game.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, what kind of person steps into a cage and they lock the cage and your job is to fight the other guy, and it's his intention to severely hurt you or knock you unconscious or choke you unconscious or break your limbs or tear your knee. I mean, there's no
what you're supposed to do.
There's no mystery. There's no hiding that. Right. And you still got in there.
Yeah.
Right. Or you take me to similar thing, but to a lesser degree, 40-year-old guy, 5'9". I started at 158 pounds. So 40 years old, 5'9", 158 pounds. And I decided that jiu-jitsu would be a cool thing to do, right? And then I proceeded to get smashed for 8 years. What kind of person does that?
Yeah.
I mean, troubled people, right? I got my demons, right? But really, it's people who want to get in the game and stay in the game. So you're just that, right? And then, I got to see your integrity and your focus and your systems and your EQ and your IQ and yada, 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 yada. And then I thought you were a good fit. And you tried, dude. You tried to get in the ownership game in martial arts. You tried that and you couldn't execute. It's easier said than done. So you clearly wanted to be an owner of something. You clearly had entrepreneurial, blood pumping through your veins, right? And you clearly had the stones to step on the mat, right? To get it, to be the man in the arena.
Yeah.
So who do I want to partner with? Well, somebody like that, someone who wants to be in the arena,
Right.
and right, someone who won't, isn't focused on all the broken noses and the bloody lips and the cauliflowered ear, obviously.
That's why I wear these to hide
Yeah.
it.
So for all those reasons, you're a good fit. And dude, we're having a lot of fun, right? And this doesn't, if we were just stressed and bickering at each other, and this would be miserable, but we are laughing and, oh, keys are gone. Okay. Well, what does it take to get new keys for the truck? Hey, is that supposed to be that color? No. Oh, that's what I thought. Well, let's just paint it the other color, right? We could have easily blown up on those things and be like, oh, this is a tragedy. No, dude, it's just paint. And we're just dudes trying to do the best we can. And we're doing a good job, not only for each other, but for our employees and for our clients. And we're having fun at it. So it doesn't surprise me at all that I saw a good fit in you, right? If anything, I'm surprised I had the opportunity to essentially snatch you out and pull you into this world of small business ownership, this world of entrepreneurship. I'm surprised that other people didn't snag you up prior to this.
Yeah.
I guess in terms of the surprise level, that's surprising me.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess to me, it's so different to buy into a well-established business or gain ownership of that versus what we've done, which is, start from zero. Although it is a franchise, like it's so much different, than I had no idea what to expect anyway. But that is just a very daunting task that I didn't think I would ever, frankly, have the courage to do. And I didn't really until, I started working with you, and we've already started another business, right? We have our business media business, and you've talked me through doing some real estate deals, and we're going to do more of those. So you and I have already started to work together to a certain extent. And so this was kind of the logical next step as you were looking to buy in blue collar, buy a business. And so it all makes sense when you look back on it, but it was a huge surprise to me that I would just be so well suited for the entrepreneurial life as far as what I know of it in 90 days. Maybe I'm not, maybe I'm delusional, but I've been enjoying my ass off, and we're finally making money. So that's good. Like, what else do you need? If you're going to start a business and you can enjoy it and you make money, done, sign me up.
Yeah. Well, you've also, it's been cool to watch you kind of build and grow your own little micro family office, right? So you got some real estate holdings, and you've got your coaching business. You just took Coach Mallory from Easton. She went and won the strawweight. She's a strawweight, right?
Yeah, strawweight championship in Octagon in Germany. She fought a German girl who beat her 2 years ago. So this was the rematch. And yeah, she went out and dominated, beat this girl 50-45, beat her every round. That 60,000 people in that stadium, all Germans, it was dead quiet when we walked out of that place. Like they didn't boo her. She handled it. She earned their respect, and we felt it in the form of silence, so that was cool.
That's amazing. Right. So yeah, you've got many irons in the fire, right? Which is just, it doesn't surprise me, right? The coaching, the SprayNet, Streamline Business Media, which that is our little media company. But I tell you, what we've done with SprayNet, we handled the unknown unknowns, right? And it's been a wild ride, man. We've got to wrap this up in 5 minutes, right?
Yep.
For somebody thinking about doing this, and now put yourself in the advisor role. Right now, you're the entrepreneur. You're a blue belt now. I'm promoting you to coach.
Nice.
What are you going to say, coach, to the person who's only had a W-2 job,
Yep.
wants to be a business owner, and wants to either buy a franchise, start a business from scratch, wants to get in the game, what do you tell them to do, and how do you tell them to stay in the game?
Well, I think it comes down to there's no lack of information. The information is everywhere, right? It comes down to the execution. And I think if you want to follow a similar model to what I did, I think you start small. You don't have to quit your W-2 job and go all in, buy a franchise that's going to take up all of your time. We didn't even think this was going to take up that much of our time when we started it. So we're really lucky in that sense. But we've already had our streamlined business media, business going for a while. So I don't think it doesn't have to be as big of a deal as what a lot of people make it to be. Maybe me being a blue belt in business now means that I'm full-time in my business that I own, but it doesn't have to start there. I would say, find some way to monetize some skill that you have and start a business around that, and start small enough that it's sustainable, that it doesn't take all of your time and energy, all of your resources, right? That's the main one. If it takes all of your money to do it and then it fails, and then you're out of the game. So the key is get in the game, stay in the game. Find something small enough that you can do consistently on the side. Like you can have an 8 to 5, and that's, there's plenty of other hours in the day. What are you doing from 5 to 8, right? Get up early and work on it for a couple hours. What are you doing at 5 p.m. when you're done? 5 a.m., 5 to 8, or 5 to 8 in the evening. There's lots of windows there for you to do it. But it's not a lack of information. It's a lack of execution. You just have to do it. And that's, you've told me this many times. How many people have you advised on how to go from 0 to 1 or 1 to 2 properties, right? If you don't own a house, it's not a lack of information that's preventing you from that. It's a lack of execution on the information. The money's out there. You can find it, right? People say, well, I don't have the money to buy it. Fair, but it's out there. If you want to learn how to do it, it's there. Find somebody who's willing to advise you. You've advised so many other people. The information is there. You have to pull the trigger. You have to execute. You have to believe in yourself and bet on yourself if you want something different. If you don't, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you feel like you want something different, you have to bet on yourself.
Yeah, I like that recommendation. Start with a micro business, a little side hustle, a little something. Just get in the game, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have to quit everything and mortgage your house and do all, pour all your savings into a single deal. In fact, I wouldn't do that. No. I'm conservative. I'm a fiscal conservative. That's for sure. I wouldn't bet it all, especially on your first deal. A great investor told me that he doesn't trust GPs or sponsors that don't have scars. Yeah. Right. So when I'm investing as an LP into somebody's, some multifamily deal, I prefer them to have some scars on their face or some gray hairs or, have been through some hard times. Because if they're all just bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, the world's going to get you, and I hope it doesn't get you when you're stewarding my cash.
Right.
So yeah, I like that idea a lot. Start small and start in digestible chunks. But the first word of that whole body of recommendation is start.
Yeah.
Start. Yeah.
Start and then iterate. But if you can't start, there's nothing to iterate on.
Yeah. All right, brother. We will leave it at that.
Yeah.
Great hour. Onward and upward, my friend.
That's right. Thanks, Chris. Good to see you. Take care.
You too. See ya.